The crown prince fell from his horse and broke his vital part, losing his ability to have children ever since. When the news reached the Marquis's estate, my legitimate sister knelt and begged me to marry in her place. I flicked my sleeves and kicked her away with a cold laugh. Back when His Majesty decreed that the crown prince should marry the legitimate daughter of the Marquis's estate, you had our parents demote me to a commoner and elevate you to the legitimate daughter. Now that the crown prince is without an heir and his ascension to the throne is uncertain, you want me to marry in your place. That's nothing but wishful thinking. As soon as the words fell, my fiancé, Dongfang Shuo, kicked the door open and stormed in. He gently helped Shen Fangying, who was kneeling on the ground weeping, to her feet, then turned to me with a furious glare. Don't forget, this marriage was originally yours, now it's simply being returned to its rightful owner. He threw me a letter of annulment. Tomorrow I will marry Fang Ying, and by then, the one who will marry into the Eastern Palace can only be you. I was stunned, my chest choked with bitterness, my brows filled with disbelief. The imperial decree clearly states that it must be the legitimate daughter of the Marquis's household. For a concubine-born daughter like me to take her place would be a crime of deceiving the emperor. At that moment, my mother dragged my father in. And they threw the family register in my face. Starting tomorrow, your status as the legitimate daughter will be restored. Fang Ying has been the apple of our eye since childhood and cannot bear the hardship of a lifetime of chastity. You will marry the rootless crown prince and live peacefully as his crown princess. Looking at the three people before me, whose favoritism knew no bounds, I smiled bitterly through my tears, my heart as cold as ashes. Fine, I'll marry him. I just hope you won't regret this. Seeing that I had agreed, the four people in front of me all let out a deep sigh of relief. My father, Shen Jingmin, beamed with joy and praised me for being sensible. My mother, Fang Yulon, smiled from ear to ear and commended me for being reasonable. Her fiancé, Dongfang Shuo, was so excited that he picked up Shen Fangying and spun around twice with relief. Great, Fangying, you don't have to marry that rootless crown prince and become a useless crown princess. We'll get married tomorrow. Shen Fangying giggled in his arms as if she had been reborn. I snorted coldly and spoke word by word. But I have one condition. Seeing me say this, the four of them all darkened their expressions and asked in unison what conditions I had. I spoke calmly. The legitimate daughter of the Marquis's household is only me. I want Shen Fangying to be demoted back to a common daughter, not to be on equal footing with me. Mother was the first to turn hostile. Shen Qing grew. Don't push your luck. Fang Ying, as the legitimate daughter, poses no threat to your position. Can you really not tolerate her? I looked at my mother with disappointment, my heart aching so much it felt like it was about to bleed. I am your own flesh and blood. Why are you so biased toward a concubine-born daughter, even allowing her to take my rightful place as the legitimate daughter? Her expression was stern, her tone unyielding. Your Aunt Guo was like a sister to me. After her death, her daughter became my own, and I naturally must treat her well. Indeed, after Aunt Guo passed away half a year ago, Mother began treating Shen Fangying with unprecedented kindness, as if they were mother and daughter. After the imperial decree was issued, Shen Fangying expressed a desire to marry the crown prince, and Mother pleaded with Father for 3 days and 3 nights to elevate her to legitimate status while demoting me to a commoner. I didn't understand why and questioned her, however. She used the excuse that I had overstepped my bounds and confined me to the ancestral hall to copy scriptures for 9 days. Coming back to my senses, I sniffled, holding back the bitter tears welling up inside, and spoke with a heavy heart. Even so, how could you turn a blind eye to your own daughter being bullied, even aiding and abetting those who wronged her? Is there something you're hiding from me? She lowered her gaze and remained silent. As if avoiding the question like a person possessed, Dongfang Shuo said with a cold expression, Fang Ying has always been timid, unlike you, who is bold and outspoken. Auntie is kind-hearted, so naturally, she pays more attention to her. Father stroked his beard and sighed. Since things have come to this, the only option left for the family is to sacrifice you by marrying that useless crown prince. I apologize to you, and I hope you won't hold a grudge against me. Father has always loved me dearly, but he is afraid of Mother. He has always let Mother make the decisions, and in doing so, he has inadvertently caused me a great deal of harm. Shen Fangying began to weep again, her tears falling like pear blossoms. Sister, just marry him. After all, you'll be the crown princess. And everyone in the Eastern Palace will show you respect. Show me respect, I scoffed. Everyone knows that without an heir, the crown prince is no different from a eunuch. How much longer can he hold on to his position? The struggle for the throne has always been brutal. Once the crown prince is deposed, to eliminate any future threats, other princes will surely hunt him down to the last. You claim to be sending me off to live peacefully as the crown princess, but in reality, you're sending me to my death. As the words fell, they exchanged glances but could not utter a single word to me. I sneered coldly and continued, now, I have demoted Shen Fangying back to a commoner's daughter, and it is for the good of the household. If the emperor were to learn that our household has 2 legitimate daughters, he would naturally inquire further. Once it's known that you chose to protect her over me, and temporarily reinstated me as the legitimate daughter, do you think your heads will still be safe? Therefore, I demand that you announce to the entire world that I, Shen Qingru, am the only legitimate daughter of the Marquis's household, now and forever. Upon hearing my words, the 4 of them trembled violently. My father repeatedly agreed, very well, we shall proceed as you suggest. Tomorrow, I will announce this news to the entire world. The other 3 wanted to object, but they could not bring themselves to speak. Seeing this, I smiled and said, very well, once the matter is settled, I will naturally marry into the Eastern Palace. The next day, the news that the Marquis's household would only have 1 legitimate daughter spread like wildfire. The streets and alleys were all buzzing with sympathy for me. I had just been unjustly demoted to a commoner, and now I was reinstated as the legitimate daughter, all because I had to marry the rootless crown prince in place of my sister. Today was originally the wedding day of Shen Fangying and Dongfang Shuo, but they were forced to postpone it due to public discussion. Shen Fangying hid in her room crying all day, refusing to eat or drink, smashing cups and throwing bowls. No matter how many gold and silver jewelry her father and mother sent her, they couldn't soothe her shattered emotions. Dongfang Shuo stormed into my boudoir filled with rage, grabbing me by the neck and demanding answers. Fangying is now being attacked by public criticism until she's utterly broken, unable to eat or sleep. Is this what you wanted to see? I was being choked by him until I couldn't breathe, frantically pounding on his arm. If you choke me to death, then only Shen Fangying can marry the crown prince. He suddenly released my neck. I coughed until my face flushed red, greedily gasping for air. After catching my breath, I turned to him with a stern and serious expression. Isn't what the common people say true? Aren't they just speaking the truth? Dongfang Shuo was instantly left speechless, looking into my eyes and pleading, could you speak up to clear Fangying's name? Just say that back then, you didn't want to marry the crown prince, so you made her the legitimate daughter. Dream on, I said resolutely, but Fangying's current state makes her prone to depression. What if she can't bear it and decides to end her life with a white silk ribbon? What would we do then? I scoffed at this. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'd set off firecrackers. Hearing me say this, he flew into a rage, clenching his fists tightly, yet he dared not lay a finger on me again. Fine, you have guts. I'll just wait for you to marry into the Eastern Palace. Wait for the emperor to depose the crown prince, and wait for the day when you and the crown prince are hunted down, watching his resolute departing figure. My heart felt as if it had been brutally stabbed. Dongfang Shuo, who once promised me a lifetime of devotion, had somehow changed his heart. He even gritted his teeth, wishing for my death. A hot tear slid down the tip of my nose and dripped onto my lapel. As the damp stain gradually spread, my heart shattered into even finer pieces. That night, my mother suddenly barged into my boudoir, carrying the family discipline board. She ordered 2 young servants to drag me into the courtyard and pin me to the ground. I struggled desperately, shouting angrily, "Mother, what are you doing? I'm getting married to the Eastern Palace in 3 days. Isn't this a bit too much for the future crown princess?" She ignored me and handed the family discipline board to Shen Fangying, whose eyes were red and swollen from crying. Her tone was extremely gentle. "Fangying, go ahead, hit her as much as you want, wherever you want. Mother will help you vent this anger right now." A flash of malice crossed Shen Fangying's eyes as she swung the family discipline board and struck me on the back. I cried out in pain, gritting my teeth as I issued a warning, I am the future crown princess. The emperor hasn't deposed the crown prince yet. Do you all have a death wish? Shun Fangying struck my back repeatedly. Although her strength wasn't great, each blow landed in the exact same spot. I was still in so much pain that my vision blurred and cold sweat poured down. My mother snorted coldly in response to what I had just said. Anyway, you haven't married into the family yet. As long as you're in the Marquis's household, the household rules apply to you. With her mother backing her up, Shun Fangying began to act more confidently. Mother is right. You've ruined my reputation among the common people, and you won't have an easy time before you get married either. Anyway, the wounds on your body will heal in 3 days, and the crown prince can't do anything to me. Just as I was about to faint, my father suddenly came running over, panting heavily. Stop, don't hit her anymore. The marriage contract has been delivered, and the wedding date has been moved up. It's tomorrow. Shun Fangying was so frightened that she dropped the family discipline board in her hand, her voice trembling. Her back is already bleeding from my beating. What if the crown prince blames us when she's married off? Seeing my injuries, my father's face darkened. He rushed over, scooped me up in his arms, and placed me back on the bed. First, he ordered someone to fetch the finest golden wound medicine for me, then turned and sternly rebuked Shun Fangying. If your mother told you to hit, you should have just given a few light strikes. Look at you. You nearly beat through the same spot. Do you want to get our entire household beheaded? Shun Fangying was too frightened to make a sound. Her mother held her tightly, watching her father's furious expression. Wasn't it you who suggested taking out the family discipline board to beat her? Why are you blaming us now? So it was my father, who had always doted on me, who came up with this idea. I felt as if struck by a bolt from the blue, tears pattering down and soaking the pillowcase. Before I could even process my emotions, my father began to scold me. Why are you crying? When you insisted that I announce to the outside world that the Marquis's household only has one legitimate daughter, you caused Fangying to go a whole day without eating. This is just a small lesson for you. Besides, your injuries aren't that serious. Just apply some golden wound ointment and you'll be fine. Tomorrow, when you arrive at the Eastern Palace, you must not speak recklessly. Otherwise, if your maternal family's reputation is ruined, it won't do you any good. I suppressed the bitterness in my heart, smiled bitterly, and didn't say another word. After they left, I replaced the wound medicine with an ointment that delayed healing, ordering the maid to secretly apply it for me. The next day, the Crown Prince's wedding procession arrived in grand style at the entrance of the Marquis's residence. The envoy leading the wedding party turned out to be Dongfang Shuo. I laughed helplessly, laughed sorrowfully, laughed mockingly. Indeed, at a young age, he led troops to reclaim the borderlands and quelled the conflicts in the Central Plains. Without a second thought, the emperor granted him the title of duke, allowing him to firmly establish his footing in the court. Beneath the red bridal veil, my eyes had long since reddened. Filled with regret for my past blindness and misplaced trust in the wrong person, I did not take his hand and boarded the carriage alone. The moment the curtain fell, he said something. It seemed to be, "I'm sorry." I closed my eyes, listening to the sound of hooves in my ears. I don't know how long it had been, but we finally arrived at the Eastern Palace. After completing the wedding ceremony, Crown Prince Tuoba Chuan and I entered the bridal chamber. The fragrance in the room was refreshing and enchanting. With a low chuckle, my bright red veil was gently lifted. It is said that Tuoba Chuan has bright eyes and well-defined brows. With a noble and majestic bearing, seeing him today, he truly lives up to his reputation. He stands 6 feet tall, with handsome features and an elegant, refined presence. His gaze seemed to be infused with scattered starlight, making it impossible not to feel a flutter in one's heart. Unfortunately, from now on, I can only be a person without roots, and I might even be hunted down by my own brothers. I couldn't help but sigh, feeling a silent regret in my heart. Seeing me staring at him in a daze and shaking my head, he wrapped his arm around my waist and pressed me firmly onto the bed, causing waves of pain to radiate from the wound on my back. Finally, I've married you. Do you know how long I've waited for this day? My body froze instantly. Sensing something unusual beneath Tuoba Chuan, I asked tentatively, You still have it, it's not broken." He raised a meaningful smile and whispered softly in my ear, "If I didn't spread the news this way, how could you marry me?" As he spoke, he pressed his body down, and a sharp pain shot through my back, causing me to let out a muffled groan. "What's wrong? Are you injured on your back?" His expression suddenly turned serious as he turned me over to examine my back, the crimson wound, oozing blood that soaked through his clothes, and his anger lingered on his face, refusing to fade. "A dignified crown princess, and the Marquis's household treats you like this. I will surely avenge this grievance for you on the day of the third day return." I had thought that even if I were to die, I would drag down those who had humiliated me in the Marquis's household along with me. That is why I deliberately prevented the wound on my back from healing, but I never expected that the Crown Prince was actually lying. With my doubts in mind, I asked him, "But what did the Crown Prince mean when he said he finally married me and had been waiting for this day for a long time?" He gently patted my head and smiled. "5 years ago, while I was out hunting, I was accidentally bitten by a venomous snake. It was you who sucked out the poison for me, saving my life. At that time, I had already fallen for you. After becoming the Crown Prince, the first thing I did was to ask my father to issue an edict to marry you. Later, when the Marquis's household demoted you to a commoner's daughter, I was truly furious, so I orchestrated this whole act. As I expected, you regained your status as the legitimate daughter, and I finally got to marry you as I wished. It was only then that I recalled everything from that year. When I followed my father out hunting and came across an injured man, I merely offered a casual hand, without taking a close look at his appearance. Moreover, he was wearing a mask at the time, which is why I didn't recognize him at all now." I beamed brightly, originally intending to endure the pain in my back and enter the bridal chamber with him, but Tuoba Chuan politely declined, only ordering someone to bring the finest tribute-grade dragon's blood ointment, which he gently applied to my wound. I was instantly overwhelmed with gratitude, and tears welled up in my eyes. 3 days later, on the day of the return visit, the Emperor's majestic and solemn procession stopped at the entrance of the Marquis's mansion, and the Crown Prince helped me down from the carriage. Everyone in the Marquis's household bowed in unison, their voices filled with reverence and respect. "Welcome, Your Highness the Crown Prince, and Your Highness the Crown Princess." Shun Fangying was so captivated by the Crown Prince's striking appearance that her eyes nearly popped out of her head. She shot me a look brimming with envy and resentment, but then a flicker of relief passed through her expression. She muttered something under her breath, which I managed to catch. The lip movement was saying, "Anyway, it's a rootless thing, all show and no substance." I curled my lips into a smile and shook my head. After entering the main hall, we all took our seats, seeing that Tuoba Chuan had looked grim since getting off the carriage. My father immediately flattered the Crown Prince with a smile. "The young lady has always been mischievous. If she said anything that angered Your Highness, please do not take it to heart." Tuoba Chuan's expression turned furious as he slammed the table and stood up. "The Crown Princess hasn't offended me, but I'd like to ask how you explain the injury on her back." The words sent the others into a panic, their eyes darting around and their bodies trembling with fear. "Mother, father," and Shun Fangying dared not respond. Only Dongfang Shuo, the Duke and General, slowly spoke up, reporting to the Crown Prince. "The injury on the Crown Princess's back was caused when I accidentally startled her while practicing swordplay. She dodged and bumped into the iron plate in the backyard. At the time, I apologized repeatedly and begged the Crown Princess to punish me, but she, in her kindness, let me off. I trust that the Crown Prince, as the heir to the throne, will not pursue the matter further." Tuoba Chuan glanced around at the people present, his gaze finally settling on Dongfang Shuo's face, and let out a cold laugh. "Father's Duke General is truly dashing and heroic on the battlefield, yet sharp-tongued in daily life." However, before he could finish his words, I quickly grabbed him and leaned close to his ear, my breath as gentle as an orchid. "If Your Highness wishes to ascend the throne, now is not the time to punish them. After all, Dongfang Shuo has just been infeft as a duke, and the emperor would be displeased." He clenched his fists tightly, swallowing his anger. With a determined look in his eyes, he told me that one day he would make them pay 1,000-fold. Tuoba Chuan was unwilling to stay any longer and boarded the carriage first, leaving me behind to exchange a few pleasantries. Shun Fangying first stared at Tuoba Chuan's retreating figure, then finally spoke the words she had held back for so long. "A rootless thing. How long can the throne of the crown prince last? She looked at me with a mocking gaze. Returning to your family with such a grand display, who are you trying to impress? But you won't be able to be proud for much longer. The crown princess won't be you for long. The court won't tolerate a rootless heir to the throne. Mother also chimed in from the side. That's right. The emperor's decree to depose the crown prince will likely be announced soon. When that happens, the third prince will be. Dongfang Shaw promptly interrupted her. Auntie, please don't speak carelessly. The one before you is the crown princess. You must be cautious with your words and actions. I realized the situation was not simple. So I immediately returned to the Eastern Palace and sent someone to investigate the third prince. Sure enough, I discovered that the Marquis's estate and the third prince were secretly forming factions for personal gain. This was something the emperor detested the most. After investigating for over a month, I had gathered a substantial amount of evidence. It happened to be a time of joyful news, as I was with child, and the imperial physician said it was a pair of twins. Tuoba Chuan was overjoyed and rewarded me with many fine things. The emperor also beamed with delight, granting permission for the Marquis's family to visit me. The visitors were my father, mother, and Shen Fangying. Their faces turned ashen the moment they entered. Taking advantage of the fact that the Eastern Palace bedchamber was empty, my father immediately gave me a fierce slap. You and the crown prince are far too bold. How could you find an outsider to bear a child and deceive the world by claiming it as the crown prince's? Could it be that to avoid being deposed, you would resort to such an absurd act? This is the crime of deceiving the sovereign. Mother was also crying her eyes out. Oh my, how did I raise such a harmful creature like you? Don't bring disaster upon our Marquis's household. She immediately threw me a severance letter, and without a word, I bit my finger and signed it. The reason I let them into the Eastern Palace today was precisely to get that severance letter. Truly, it came without any effort at all. I gave a meaningful glance to the maid Xiao Jin, who was standing not far outside the hall, and she immediately ran out. After Shen Fangying entered the hall, the tension she had been holding finally eased. She snatched the severance letter, fearing I might change my mind. At least you still have a conscience. Why is it so lively when the Marquis's family comes to visit my crown princess? A magnetic, deep, and authoritative voice echoed from outside the hall. Crown Prince Tuoba Chuan swept aside his robe and strode in steadily. It sounds like you have objections to the twins of this palace and the crown princess. Father stroked his beard and sneered coldly. Your Highness, there's no need to be stubborn. The third prince has already reported this matter to the emperor, and His Majesty will soon issue an edict to depose the crown prince. Is that so? Tuoba Chuan revealed an enigmatic smile. The next second, the voice of the chief eunuch announcing the imperial decree came from outside the hall. Members of the Marquis's household, receive the decree. It seems Xiao Jin's message has been delivered. The hall instantly fell to its knees in unison, with father, mother, and Shen Fangying all wearing triumphant smiles on their faces. Your servant is here. Your humble wife is here, your humble daughter is here. Due to conclusive evidence of forming cliques for personal gain with the third prince, Marquis Mansion Minister Shen Jingmin has been demoted to Shu. His wife, Fang Yulon, has been stripped of her noble title and will accompany him, never to return to the capital. Their daughter, Shen Fangying, is to be dealt with by the Eastern Palace. The three of them knelt on the ground, trembling like sieves, and hesitated to receive the decree. I glanced sideways and sneered. What's wrong? Have you all lost your minds? This is the Emperor's decree. Are you planning to defy it? I, your subject, accept the decree on behalf of the Marquis's household. Father trembled as he bowed to receive the imperial edict. After the eunuch left, all three of them collapsed heavily to the ground, their legs giving way. Father's lips were deathly pale, and mother's face turned ashen. How could this be? Shen Fangying blurted out as if she had lost her soul. Watching the three of them in their pitiful state, I smiled gracefully. The crown prince has no flaws at all. It was all part of the plan. Not only did I reclaim my rightful position as the legitimate daughter, become the crown princess, and conceive twins, but I also successfully severed ties with you and dealt with you accordingly. The crown prince not only married the one he loves but also used you to bring down the most ruthless figure, the third prince. It truly was a move that achieved multiple goals. I lifted Shen Fangying's chin. As for you, you can be the foot-washing maid for my maid, Xiao Jin. You want me to wash your maid's feet? She glared angrily. Otherwise, wash mine. I frowned. Are you worthy? You're also from the Marquis's household. Why haven't you been punished? Why can you still become the crown princess? Shen Fangying asked resentfully. I lifted my chin and gestured toward the severance letter. Of course, it's because of the severance letter you sent. Tuoba Chuan, fearing the severance letter might be destroyed, snatched it back from their hands at lightning speed and ordered the guards. Go and take it to Father Emperor, Shen Fangying said in a weak, tearful voice. I am to marry Duke General Dongfang Shaw tomorrow. You must let me go. I sneered coldly. Dongfang Shaw is also part of the factional scheming. Do you think the Emperor hasn't dealt with him? The Emperor simply sent him to reclaim Shiliang, and he is already on his way. The Shiliang kingdom is inherently fierce and aggressive. The Emperor didn't allocate him many troops, so he can only rely on strategy. Everything depends on his ability to survive. I patted her face. Do you think he can still come back? And even if he does, will he be missing limbs? What if he also injures his vital parts? She let out a terrified scream, startling the leaves outside the window into a flurry of falling. It was utterly desolate. Xiao Jin suddenly came running back, panting heavily, and whispered a few words in my ear. Instantly, my breath caught in my throat. I stared into my mother's eyes, filled with hatred as they looked at me, and couldn't help but feel tears welling up in my own. You must have misunderstood something. She cried until her eyes were bloodshot. What did I misunderstand? What is there for me to misunderstand? I calmed myself down and continued. Did Aunt Gu tell you before she died that her daughter Shen Fangying is actually your biological daughter? Did she say she was jealous that you were the main wife? So she switched the babies when you both gave birth? She wiped her tears, the hatred in her eyes overflowing as she pointed at me and screamed, if it weren't for that Gu woman. How could I have held you in the palm of my hand as my own daughter for so long? So what if you know that Gu is your birth mother? She's dead and can't enjoy wealth and glory anymore, I said coldly, word by word. But she lied to you. I am your real daughter. She was just afraid that her own daughter would have no one to love her after she died, so she told you that. She was stunned for a moment, her eyes filled with astonishment. What did you say? Where did you hear that? The Crown Prince's information cannot be false. I closed my eyes, my voice trembling. She collapsed completely to the ground, crying as if her heart were breaking. My daughter, mother has failed you. Lady Gu, when I die, I will tear you to pieces. I will make sure you never find peace in the afterlife. I tightly closed my eyes, hot tears streaming down the corners. It was too late, everything was over. I listened to the heart-wrenching cries of my father and mother as they were dragged away. It felt as if my heart had been slashed twice with a knife. Later, I transferred all this hatred onto Shen Fangying. The daily must-watch spectacle for the servants of the Eastern Palace was Xiao Jin slapping Shen Fangying, every day, without fail. She received 99 slaps, leaving her face swollen, red, and dripping with blood. After the slapping, she had to kneel and serve Xiao Jin by washing her feet. If the water temperature was unsatisfactory, she would be whipped 10 times with a cane. After 3 days, she had long since transformed from the once glamorous daughter of the Marquis's household into something as lowly as mud. Not long after, the emperor passed away, and the ministers supported Crown Prince Tuoba Chuan in ascending the throne, making me the center of attention as the empress. That evening, a family banquet was held. Xiao Jin saw Shen Fangying acting suspiciously in the small kitchen, as if she had put something into Tuoba Chuan's soup bowl. Xiao Jin went to test it and found it non-toxic, then came specifically to await my orders. Without a doubt, I knew she wanted to seize the opportunity to become a mistress and escape this unbearable life. I did not stop her. Instead, I went along with her wishes and continued the banquet. However, I casually gave that bowl of soup to an unremarkable little guard. Under the cover of darkness, a commotion arose from the back garden. The imperial relatives and nobles all rushed to watch the show, and indeed saw a man riding on a maid, continuously thrusting up and down. The crimson belliband was so shameful it was unbearable to look at. How dare you? How can you be so insolent at a royal family banquet? Guards, drag these two down and beat them to death with clubs. Shen Fangying screamed and roared. Why would someone else drink the emperor's soup? Shen Qingru, Was it you who played tricks? Did you want to kill me? How dare you, calling the Empress by her name? What crime do you think you have committed? Even with 800 heads, it wouldn't be enough to pay for your offense. Xiao Jin stepped forward and skillfully slapped her. I covered my nose and smiled. My eyes filled with mockery at her self-incrimination. From what I hear, is it that you, Shen Fangying, attempted to drug the Emperor to bewitch him, but instead ended up drugging the guard? In that case, being beaten to death with clubs would be too lenient for you. Let's make you into a human swine instead. As a warning to the entire harem, Shen Fangying was completely dumbfounded, continuously muttering, "No, no." As for the guard, he was merely bewitched. Considering it wasn't intentional, I'll deduct a month's salary from you as punishment. Thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you, Your Majesty. The guard repeatedly expressed his gratitude verbally before hastily fleeing, and Shen Fangying was also dragged to the Department of Punishment in full view of everyone, where she was made into a human swine. After that, not only did I use her to establish my authority, but I also brought peace to the harem for a long time. The day after the twin princes were born, Dongfang Shaw unexpectedly returned alive from Shiliang, defying all odds. The reward he asked from the emperor was me. Soon, the court was thrown into chaos, with rumors about me and Dongfang Shaw spreading wildly. That day, after Tuoba Chuan left the court, he came to my Jingren palace, his entire body seething with anger. He forced me onto the bed and indulged in me fiercely, then asked in a low, unsatisfied voice, "Do you still love him?" I froze for a moment, then shook my head decisively. "Of course not." He rolled off me, taking a couple of deep breaths to calm himself down. "Did you hear about what happened in court today?" I nodded, and he continued, "I have just ascended the throne, and he has made great contributions by pacifying Shiliang. He is considered a founding hero, so I really can't just have him beheaded. If I have him executed, I will be seen as a tyrant in the eyes of all the civil and military officials. But if I don't, the reward he seeks is to become the empress, and in the future, I will be seen as a pushover by all the civil and military officials. No matter what choice he makes, he's putting me on the fire, leaving me in a dilemma." My eyes lit up with a clever idea. "I have a plan that can break this deadlock. Speak." Although Shiliang has been pacified, there is still Nanliang. While the king of Nanliang cherishes peace, they have always been more ferocious than Shiliang. We only need to have the border people falsely report that Nanliang is about to attack the city, send Dongfang Shaw on another campaign, and then quietly send him on his way. That will be the end of it. Tuoba Chuan's eyes suddenly lit up with a smile as he gently kissed my forehead. "You truly are my beloved empress. Let's do it this way." The day before the expedition, Dongfang Shaw requested from the emperor the opportunity to share a drink with me. We met in a side pavilion. Gazing at each other for a long time without speaking, his face was weathered, as if he had aged 10 years. "Qingru, I truly miss you. I am now the empress." As a subject, addressing the empress in such a manner is hardly appropriate, is it? During my time in Shiliang, I came to understand everything. I realized that the person deep in my heart has always been you, and that has never changed, so I fought with all my might to stay alive and return, to see you and tell you everything. I lowered my gaze without a word, simply pouring the cup of poisoned wine and handing it to him. "It's too late to say all this. Consider this cup of wine a token of remembrance I give you before you set off on the campaign. Qingru, the emperor has said that as long as I return alive this time, he will grant us our wish. Do you believe me?" The deep affection in his eyes felt unfamiliar to me, as if we had returned to the time when he promised me a lifetime of devotion. The evening breeze brushed against his cheek, carrying his scent into my nostrils, making me feel dazed for a moment. Suddenly, I shook my head to clear my mind, my eyes moist. "There's no need to say more. Duke, this glass of wine, I toast to you, wishing you a smooth journey on your expedition." "Do you really want me to drink?" His lips trembled slightly. Seeing that I still smiled and lowered my head without speaking, he grabbed the wine glass and drank it down in one gulp. "All right. I'll do as you wish." I suddenly looked up, meeting his eyes filled with bitterness and regret, and spoke in a faint voice. "You knew there was poison in the wine." He smiled bitterly and nodded. Before he could utter a word, blood began to flow from all 7 orifices. And he collapsed onto the pavilion. My heart stopped for an instant, and my breathing grew rapid. I summoned the guards who had long been waiting in the grass and gave the order, "Handle this discreetly. In a few days, send word back to the capital that the Duke sacrificed his life to quell the rebellion." Everything went smoothly as originally planned. Not long after, news came from the Shu region that my father and mother had lost their lives to the plague. Although those who had wronged me one by one received their due punishment, yet, a sharp pain still pierced my heart. In the end, I chose to let go. Tuoba seemed to see through my thoughts. He wrapped his arm around my waist and whispered in my ear to comfort me. "You still have me. I will always be by your side. Why don't you address yourself as Zhen? That's not proper etiquette," I teased. "With you, I do not wish to be the emperor who stands aloof in the cold heights, but only a subject who falls at the hem of your skirt." With a smile in his eyes, he carried me back to the bed, and we shared a night of springtime bliss. That night, I slept exceptionally soundly. After the nation lost a capable duke and general, it naturally needed new talents to step forward. Although the imperial harem is not allowed to interfere in politics, I have privately trained many outstanding soldiers for Tuoba. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent, each brimming with ambition. After the king of Nanliang passed away, the newly ascended prince began to stir up war. The soldiers I selected stepped up without hesitation. Charging forward into battle, they successfully reclaimed Nanliang. Although the war was won, I still felt no joy in my heart. I began to suggest to Tuoba that he issue a decree in the court to reduce the atmosphere of hostility and order scholars to advocate for the protection of peace. It was not about prioritizing civil affairs over military matters, nor was it about prioritizing military affairs over civil ones. Rather, it was about seeing a genuine commitment to putting the security of the great nation first, the prosperous era where living in peace and contentment is placed second. 3 years later, Tuoba held me by the waist. We stood on the city wall, watching the blooming candlelight, and he whispered in my ear, "Thank you, my queen." I held his hand tightly, lowering my gaze with a light smile. "From now on, I, Shen Qingru, will fulfill my role as the Empress of Great Wei. Together with Tuoba, I will protect this hard-won era of prosperity." After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. In the 15th year of being adopted by the Empress Dowager, my biological parents came to claim me. Before leaving, the Empress Dowager sent a message back. "The court officials always use your humble background as an excuse to prevent hunger from making you the Empress. Although the status of a minister's daughter is low, it is enough to silence those people. You can go back and prepare for the wedding with peace of mind." But as soon as I got into the carriage, I was informed that fake daughter, the Lin family does not intend to send her away. The biological father frowned and whispered, "If it weren't for the old lady insisting on marrying only a legitimate daughter, we wouldn't have had to bring her back. She has nothing but a pretty face, grew up in the countryside, and is crude and ill-mannered. Marrying her off would only disgrace the Lin family." Biological mother comforts, "It's fine. We'll have her be a concubine, and Mingxue will be the wife. Just tell the old lady that her fate is too lowly to be the mistress of the Marquis's household." The legitimate elder brother breathed a sigh of relief and looked at me. "Even as a concubine, you must know your place." With just a few words, they decided my fate as if dismissing a dog. Playing with the slightly cool teacup in my palm, I spoke calmly, "I'm afraid I cannot become this concubine." Father was furious, slamming the table with a deafening crash. "Parents' orders and matchmakers' words, how can you dare to resist, after all these years away from home? Have you forgotten even the most basic manners?" Mother quickly soothed him with gentle words, then turned to me with a disappointed reprimand. "Which destitute family raised such an ill-mannered, disrespectful junior as you?" Hearing her mention the Empress Dowager, my voice turned cold. "How my foster mother raised me is none of your business." Seeing me dare to talk back, my father was so angry he clutched his chest. "You still dare to talk back? Our Lin family is a respectable household in the capital. How could I possibly present such a crude and unfilial daughter?" "Respectable," I sneered inwardly, "a mere vice minister, a family that didn't even have the standing to stand before me at palace banquets, is putting on airs now." I rose to my feet, brushing my sleeves. Since both of you think I am not presentable, I shall return." My legitimate elder brother, Lin Jingxian, grabbed me and sneered coldly. "Are you putting on airs just because the old madam specifically asked for the true legitimate daughter?" His handsome features revealed a hint of disdain. "Even the smallest scraps that fall from the Lin family's fingers are better than you being a nun in that shabby nunnery." Looking at the self-righteousness in his eyes, I let out a light scoff. The so-called shabby nunnery in their eyes was actually a blessed place on the imperial estate, dedicated to the noble women of the inner court for prayer and spiritual cultivation. The Empress Dowager is unwell, and I have voluntarily come to the nunnery to cultivate purity and pray for blessings. But I never expected that, dressed in simple clothes and a thorn hairpin, the Lin family, who came to find their long-lost relative, would mistake me for a country bumpkin. On second thought, it makes sense. The Lin family, being just a minor official in the Ministry of War, could never have entered the circle of the capital's nobility, so it's no surprise they were unaware of the special status of this nunnery. Seeing the atmosphere in the carriage grow tense, Mother forced a smile and softened her tone. "You silly child, aren't we doing this for your own good? After being lost among the common folk for so many years, it's already difficult for you to find a good marriage. Being able to marry into a marquis's household is something many families can only dream of." She slipped a bracelet from her wrist and pressed it into my hand. "This is a gift I picked out for you. Do you like it?" When those warm hands held mine, my heart trembled. After all, which child in this world does not long for family affection? The moment I learned my biological parents had come looking for me, I was filled with hope. Now, I am filled with disappointment, subconsciously stroking the bracelet on my wrist. My heart was a whirlwind of mixed emotions. The walls in my heart had just begun to waver when my mother's next words nailed me in place. "Mingxue is sensitive and tends to overthink. We'll talk about adding you to the family registry later, and don't bring it up in front of her." The bracelet dug sharply into my wrist bone, and my throat felt as if a soft thorn had lodged itself there. So even the little warmth I received was meant for someone else. The carriage slowly came to a stop at the entrance of the Lin residence, and a timid voice rang out, "Is my sister back?" "I've packed my things and will move to the firewood shed in a moment." The girl, who was about my age, bit her lip as she spoke. Her eyes were already brimming with tears. The eldest brother took one look and felt heartbroken. "Isn't there enough room in the mansion? Why do you want to move out?" Mother sighed and comforted her at the same time. "No matter how outsiders see it, in this mansion, you are my own precious daughter." Lin Mingxue's eyes reddened, and she suddenly fell to her knees with a thud. "After all these years with the Lin family, I've long considered you my family. Now that my sister has returned, I don't ask to continue being your daughter. I only beg master, madam, and young master to let me stay as a personal maid, so I can fulfill my filial devotion." The words master, madam, and young master brought tears to the eyes of all three people present. If it weren't for me, an outsider, being present, the family of four would likely have already embraced each other and wept. After taking turns comforting Lin Mingxue, my father glanced at me, his eyes filled with disgust. "What does being biologically related matter? If she can't be raised properly, she's still an ungrateful wretch. If only she were half as filial and obedient as Mingxue, I wouldn't have to worry so much." My mother looked at me and shook her head. "You can stay with Mingxue and learn some manners from her while you're at it. I'd be content if you could even have a third of her obedience and politeness." The servants in the mansion were quick to read the room, and the tea served to me was cold. At the welcome banquet held for me in the evening, the whole family gathered around Lin Mingxue, showering her with concern and warmth, afraid she might feel slighted. It seemed everyone had forgotten that I was supposed to be the guest of honor at this feast. Looking at the table full of dishes I didn't like, I suddenly lost my appetite. After dinner, when I returned to the courtyard, I found the side room completely packed, with no space to even step inside. Lin Mingxue fanned herself leisurely, her tone dismissive. "Sister, your room hasn't been tidied up yet. You'll have to sleep with the servants tonight. What's left to tidy up?" It's just a way to humiliate me. After more than a decade in the palace, such petty tricks don't even catch my eye. I immediately turned to leave. If there's no room for me in the mansion, I'll just go outside. At worst, I can just go back to the palace. But just as I was about to leave, Lin Mingxue pushed me hard. Going to tattle again. Guess who mom and dad will believe, you or me? I was shoved and fell against the corner of the table, a sharp pain shooting through my waist. Looking at the jade bracelet I risked injury to protect, she suddenly covered her mouth and laughed. This was given to you by mother, wasn't it? Do you know where the other bracelet is? A hint of malice flashed in her raised eyebrows. Last month, mother rewarded it to a capable little maid by her side, a piece of trash that rewards servants, and you treat it like a treasure. Truly, coming from the countryside, you've never seen the world and have such shallow eyes. My fingers gripping the jade bracelet turned slightly pale, and a bitter taste spread in my mouth. In all these years in the palace, what rare treasures have I not seen? How could I not tell that this jade bracelet is worth only a few taels of silver? It's simply because it was given by my birth mother that I treasure it so much, even though I know all too well that it contains too much perfunctoriness and calculation. The commotion in the courtyard woke the others. And seeing the lanterns approaching, Lin Mingxue immediately changed her expression. She ran over, covering her face with a handkerchief and weeping, appearing both aggrieved and sensible. Father, mother, let my sister stay here alone, I'll go sleep in the woodshed instead. She put down the handkerchief, her face now bearing several bright red finger marks that had appeared at some point. Her legitimate brother flew into a rage, tenderly helping Lin Mingxue to her feet as he spoke without mercy. I've said all along that we shouldn't indulge her. A few days locked up will teach her what's good for her. Mother's hands trembled with anger. How can you be so narrow-minded? How could I have given birth to a daughter like you? I didn't say a word, my gaze fixed on a maid's hand in the crowd. There, she wore a jade bracelet identical to the one on my wrist. I suddenly lost the strength to explain. I took off the jade bracelet and placed it on the table. Here, I'm returning this to you. Seeing my calm, expressionless face, a flicker of panic flashed in my mother's eyes. What are you doing? I only said a couple of things to you. Why are you so angry? Father said in a displeased tone. Since you refuse to listen and behave, just lock her up. She can come out when she learns to be obedient. Look at how malicious she is, daring to bully Mingxue at home. Who knows what trouble she'll cause after marrying into the Marquis's household. Mother had intended to stop it. But seeing Lin Mingxue's swollen eyes, she hardened her heart. Without another word, she locked me directly in the woodshed. Since being adopted by the Empress Dowager, when had I ever suffered such humiliation? Just as I was trying to figure out how to contact the palace, Lin Mingxue appeared at the door of the woodshed. She fanned herself with a round fan, her eyes and brows filled with a sarcasm and bitterness that were absent when we first met. I thought you'd be a tough opponent. But it turns out you're just a fool. She pinched my chin and looked me over from side to side, a hint of jealousy flashing in her eyes. What does it matter if you're the real daughter? You're still destined to be a concubine, forever trampled under my feet. I brushed her hand away and sneered. Just the mistress of a marquis's household, and you go to such lengths for that. I had thought the fake daughter they valued so highly must be exceptional, but from what I've seen along the way, she's nothing more than this. Seeing my disdain, Lin Mingxue flushed with anger. Since my sister doesn't understand the rules, let me teach you. With a wave of her hand, two stout and strong maids immediately pinned me to the ground. Lin Mingxue picked up the ruler and struck me hard on the back of my knees. Smack. The pain made me instantly collapse to my knees, and I gritted my teeth, suppressing a flicker of fierce determination in my eyes. All these years, even the Empress Dowager couldn't bear to make me kneel. What kind of person is Lin Mingxue, that she dares to force me to kneel before her? I struggled a few times, but a large hand suddenly pressed me to the ground, leaving me unable to move. Lin Jingxian had me tied up, then wiped his hands in disgust. Mingxue was kindly teaching you manners. And you actually dared to lay a hand on her. The moment she saw who had arrived, Lin Mingxue's expression changed. She twisted her handkerchief, on the verge of tears, and sobbed. It's my fault. I was too impatient. I was afraid that my sister didn't understand etiquette and would embarrass the family. So Lin Jingxuan's eyes were filled with heartache as he comforted her softly. Why bother with her? If she doesn't want to learn, so be it, as a lowly concubine. If she doesn't understand the rules in the future and gets beaten to death by her master, she deserves it. Even though I had long lost hope for blood ties and familial affection, the cold indifference in those words still left me feeling suffocated and stifled. Looking at the man before me, I tried to find some trace of his childhood self in his face. The elder brother who once shielded me with his love and protection has now turned into this state, meeting my gaze. Lin Jingxian subtly furrowed his brows, but then turned his head as Lin Mingshua's sobs grew louder. Don't worry, I will make sure to discipline her properly and ensure she never dares to bully you again, he said with disgust. When I find your adoptive parents, I will definitely ask them how they raised you to be like this. My eyes were filled with a chilling coldness. I'm afraid you don't have the right to ask, questioning the Empress Dowager, throughout the entire world. Even the Emperor wouldn't dare. Lin Jingxian was so angry that his chest heaved. Just as he was about to speak, a voice interrupted him. Is this the lost daughter of the Lin family, disrespectful to elders, arrogant and domineering? No wonder Madame Lin said she is unfit to be a proper wife. Upon seeing the newcomer, a flicker of delight flashed in Lin Mingshua's eyes as she hurriedly stepped forward and coquettishly called out, "Brother Ji Yu," looking at that exceptionally handsome face. It was no wonder Lin Mingxua was so determined to marry him. Noticing the flash of admiration in Ji Yu Xiuming's gaze as he looked at me, Lin Mingshua's expression faltered slightly, hiding the hatred in her eyes. She twisted her handkerchief and pretended to be understanding. After all, sister is the true legitimate daughter. As long as I can stay by Brother Gu's side, I wouldn't mind being a concubine or even a maidservant. Ji Yu Xiuming quickly wiped the tears from her face, his heart aching as he said, "Don't worry, once you both enter the household, I will send her far away to a separate estate. I will never let you suffer any injustice." Lin Jingxian sighed and comforted her. "Father and mother have already discussed it. In this household, you are the only one recognized as the legitimate daughter. As for her, we will only say to the outside world that she was adopted." Upon hearing this, a flicker of wild joy flashed in Lin Mingshua's eyes. If she was the only one recognized as the legitimate daughter, then the position of the Marquis's wife would undoubtedly be hers. Lin Jingxian looked at me coldly. "This is all your own doing, but as long as you know your place and don't try to steal Mingshu's favor with any devious ideas, you won't be short of benefits." It didn't take long for me to find out what he meant by benefits. Looking at the fabrics and jewelry the maids brought over, I couldn't even be bothered to lift my eyelids. Such low-quality trinkets, I wouldn't even give them to my servants. There are still 3 days left until the agreed-upon date with the Empress Dowager. Thinking that I only need to wait 3 more days, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. But unexpectedly, I didn't wait for the imperial decree. I waited for Lin Mingxua instead. Seeing the maidservants by her side, a sense of unease arose in my heart. "What are you planning to do?" Lin Mingxua ordered people to hold me down while smiling brightly. "Sister, don't blame me for being ruthless, it's just that your face really makes me uneasy." The golden hairpin in her hand gleamed coldly, and I immediately understood her malicious intent, shouting sharply, "I am the adopted daughter of the Empress Dowager. Before you act, think carefully about whether you can bear the consequences." However, upon hearing the words "adopted daughter of the Empress Dowager," Lin Mingshua's expression instantly turned extremely grim. She pinched my chin fiercely, her sharp nails digging into my flesh, causing me intense pain. "You really know how to flatter yourself. Do you think that just because few people in the capital have seen this important figure, you can impersonate her and act all high and mighty?" A flicker of deep-seated jealousy flashed in her eyes. "You say you don't want to be a concubine. You don't want to marry Brother Ji Yu, but in reality, you seduced him the moment you met. Otherwise, why would he ask a few more questions about you after he went back?" Lin Mingxua sneered coldly. "With a face like that, I can see you won't be able to stay quiet." Before I could even react, a sharp pain shot across my face. Blood dripped down the golden hairpin, and a wild jealousy flashed in Lin Mingshua's eyes. Seeing that she was about to strike again, I knew things were about to go wrong. Seizing the moment, I rushed out. After only a few steps, I ran into my father and mother in the garden. Without a second thought, I shouted sharply, "If anything happens to me, the Lin family won't survive either." Seeing them look over, I immediately said, "I am the adopted daughter of the Empress Dowager, personally granted the title of Yong'an County Princess by His Majesty." Before I could finish speaking, Lin Mingxua, who had caught up, had already pinned me to the ground. "Sister, how could you impersonate a royal noble just to become the legitimate wife of the Marquis's household?" Do you want to bring ruin upon our entire family?" As soon as she spoke, her father snapped back to reality and angrily rebuked her. "Just because the county princess lives in seclusion and few know her true appearance, you dare to impersonate her. Disaster. I truly brought a disaster home." Seeing how he firmly believed Lin Mingshua's words, I sneered coldly. "Yes, Lin Mingxua is your lucky star, a lucky star who ruins others' faces out of jealousy." Only then did Lin Jingxian notice the terrifying wound on my face, his brow furrowing tightly. Mother, noticing Lin Mingshua's flustered expression, immediately understood what had happened, but the next moment, her words sent my heart plummeting to the depths. "That face of yours is truly a curse. Even before you're married, you're already thinking of seducing your sister's husband. It's only natural to cut off such thoughts early." Father nodded in agreement, as expected of my daughter, decisive and resolute, to prevent her from causing trouble in the future. Lin Jingxian moved his lips but said nothing. Seeing their attitudes, my blood felt as if it had frozen. I should have known better than to have any expectations of them. Lin Mingxua tried her best to hide the smugness in her eyes, speaking with a worried tone. "It's just that my sister's temperament is so unruly and outspoken. It's fine at home, but if she were to marry into the Marquis's household, I'm afraid she would bring a catastrophic disaster upon the family." Father's face suddenly darkened, and his gaze toward me was already filled with murderous intent. He was about to speak when Lin Jingxian interrupted. "Better to just poison her mute. If she dies, it won't be easy to explain to the old lady." With that, he raised his hand and called for someone to bring over a bowl of dark, murky medicinal soup, intending to force it down my throat. I struggled with all my might. "If Xiao Huaiheng finds out, no one can save you." Hearing me dare to directly address the emperor by his name, a flicker of doubt and uncertainty flashed in their eyes. The next moment, Lin Mingxua slapped me. A burning pain spread across my face. "You dare to call the emperor by his name? Do you really want to drag the whole family down with you? Hurry, hurry, give her the poison to make her mute." The dark, murky medicinal soup was brought before me, its foul stench making me nauseous. Catching the ruthless glint in Lin Mingshua's eyes, I felt as if I had plunged into an icy abyss. This medicine, I feared, was not just meant to poison someone into silence. My chin was tightly pinched, and just as I was about to resign myself to fate, the steward stumbled into the backyard. "Master, madam, an imperial decree has arrived from the palace, specifically calling for the legitimate daughter of the Lin family to receive it." Everyone was stunned, and no longer paying attention to me, they hurriedly straightened their clothes and headed to the front courtyard. I understood in my heart that this must be someone coming for me, but just as I was about to stand up, Lin Mingxua had someone hold me down. "How can she meet outsiders looking like this? Lock her in the woodshed. Keep a close watch, and don't let her come out to scare people." My mother quickly nodded in agreement. "Yes, if we disturb the eunuch, we might be punished." Watching their fearful expressions, the chill in my eyes deepened. Can a mere eunuch frighten them to this extent? What kind of faces will they make when they learn my true identity later? My throat, which had just been forced to swallow some medicine, throbbed with intense pain. I gritted my teeth against the agony and spoke hoarsely. "The imperial decree has been announced. Everyone in the household must be present. Anyone who is absent will be considered guilty of grave disrespect." I swept a cold gaze over the crowd. "Do you wish to commit the crime of grave disrespect?" Upon hearing my words, their expressions changed drastically. Although my father was seething with anger, he dared not offend the imperial authority at this moment. He immediately had someone tidy me up briefly and brought me along to the front courtyard. Stumbling along, I was taken to the front courtyard, only to find that the eunuch delivering the imperial decree was a stranger. Before I could get a good look, my head was pushed down by Lin Jingxian. He whispered, "Are you trying to get yourself killed? Weren't you just acting all proper?" After saying that, he paused briefly and lowered his voice. "How did you know that everyone in the household must greet the imperial decree? Weren't you raised in the countryside all along? Why are you so familiar with court etiquette?" I wanted to speak, but my throat was already too hoarse to utter a word. Lin Jingxian gave me a complicated look and said nothing more. The eunuch, seeing that everyone had arrived, was about to announce the decree when he suddenly noticed something amiss. "Minister Lin, I thought your household only had 4 members. one son and one daughter. How did an extra young lady come about? My father was taken aback and quickly pointed at me. This is the adopted daughter I took in some time ago. She just injured her face while playing around. My throat ached terribly, and I could only stare coldly at him as he spouted nonsense. The biological daughter becomes the adopted daughter. This is indeed something my good father is capable of doing. Upon hearing that I was merely an adopted daughter, the eunuch, though harboring doubts, said nothing. He proceeded to announce the decree as usual. The emperor has issued an edict appointing the legitimate daughter of the Lin family as the empress. The grand wedding will take place 1 month from now. Lord Lin, please accept the decree. Watching the chief eunuch's fawning demeanor, my father froze in place, overwhelmed by this earth-shattering joy. As the palace maids and guards carried in chest after chest of jewels, his expression grew dazed. He instinctively tugged at his wife beside him. Am I dreaming? The eunuch quickly put on a beaming smile to offer congratulations. Lord Imperial Uncle, this is an edict personally drafted by His Majesty. How could there be any mistake? I offer my congratulations to you first, Lord Imperial Uncle, holding the imperial edict. My father still looked as if he were floating on clouds. Lin Mingxue was also stunned in place. Just a moment ago, she had been scheming with all her might for the position of the Marquis's wife. The next second, she had become the current empress. Her expression shifted back and forth, as if she were both crying and laughing. I am the empress now. From now on I will be second only to one and above all others. I always knew I was destined for greatness. I just knew it. Watching the family's ecstatic expressions, Lin Jingxian, on the other hand, remained unusually calm. He couldn't help but speak up to remind them. Does the imperial edict specify which daughter of the Lin family? Father's face darkened. Who else could it be? Naturally, it's my dear daughter, Lin Mingxue. How dare a foster daughter aspire to the position of empress? After saying that, he waved his hand in annoyance. Take her back and lock her up properly. Don't let her run out again. From now on, the Lin family will be relatives of the imperial family. We absolutely cannot let her embarrass us. He patted Lin Mingxue with a look of affection. Bringing you back to the mansion was the best decision I ever made. You truly are the lucky star of our Lin family. Lin Mingxue smiled obediently. After your daughter enters the palace, she will surely secure a better position for you. Father, hearing this, father nodded in satisfaction. Watching this scene of a loving father and a filial daughter, Lin Jingxian couldn't help but interject. But, Lin Mingxue still has a marriage arrangement with the Marquis's household. How will we explain this to Jiyu Xiuming? Besides, Lin Mingxue, haven't you always been fond of young Master Jiyu and insisted on marrying no one but him? Upon hearing this, both of their expressions changed slightly. Lin Mingxue lowered her head and bit her lip. Brother, I don't want to break off the engagement either, but the imperial decree has been issued. And if I don't marry, it would be defying the emperor's order. Should I put my own selfish desires above the well-being of the entire family? Her words were so reasonable that Lin Jingxian was left speechless. He looked at Jiyu Xiuming with a hint of complexity in his eyes, as if realizing for the first time that his sister was not as simple-minded as he had imagined. Father waved his hand. Between the current empress and a down-and-out princess, naturally one would choose the former. People strive for higher ground. Water flows to lower ground. Your sister did nothing wrong. Lin Jingxuan's throat moved slightly as he whispered softly. Although the Marquis's household has fallen on hard times in recent years, the dowager has many old acquaintances in the court. I'm afraid outsiders will say that you, father, have betrayed trust and abandoned righteousness for the sake of power. These words struck a nerve with father, who has always been hypocritical yet resents others pointing it out. Now that his own son had brought it up, his expression grew even more unpleasant. His gaze fell heavily upon me. Isn't there still her? Since the old lady wants to marry the true Lin family daughter, then send her over. They never said that Lin Mingxue must also marry over. Lin Jingxian frowned, unable to find a reason to refute for a moment. I could only watch helplessly as my father gave the orders. Treat the wounds on her face. At least make sure she stays alive until she's married off. I've already sent the person to the Marquis's estate. If you cause any more trouble, don't blame me for being ruthless. In the past, the Lin family's status was far inferior to that of the Marquis's estate. They had to humble themselves everywhere. enduring humiliation in silence. With just one word from the old lady, they had to turn everything upside down to find me. Now that the Lin residence has become the residence of the emperor's uncle, he immediately changed his tune. But how could the Marquis's household be easily offended? Upon receiving the news, Jiyu Xiuming immediately came knocking. "Uncle Lin, I had a marriage arrangement with Lin Mingxue first. How could you go back on your word?" Father's expression was cold, completely unlike his previous warmth. "The emperor's command is as weighty as a mountain. We have no choice. Didn't the old lady say she wanted to bring the true young lady of the Lin family? Take her away." Father pointed at me and pushed me over as if discarding trash. During these days, although the household had sent someone to treat my injuries, the deep, bone-visible scar on my face remained glaringly obvious. Seeing that what was once a beautiful face had now turned into a terrifying sight, Jiyu Xiuming's disgust was not concealed in the slightest. "An ugly monster, and a mute at that. Such a woman is even lower than the lowest prostitute in a brothel. How dare you insult me like this? If I don't get an explanation today, I won't leave." Seeing this, Lin Mingxue felt troubled. "I also wish to spend my life with the young master, but our love is deep while fate is shallow, and the empress' command is hard to defy. Let us meet again in the next life." Jiyu Xiuming didn't care about any of this and grabbed her sleeve. "Since you still have me in your heart, come with me to the palace now and ask the emperor to call off the marriage." Upon hearing this, Lin Mingxue's face suddenly changed, and she blurted out, "No way." Meeting Jiyu Xiuming's stubborn gaze, she gritted her teeth and stopped acting. "You're crazy." "But I'm not. That's the position of the empress. Can you give it to me? I used to humor you, and you really started to take yourself seriously. Let me tell you, if you know what's good for you, from now on, don't ever mention that we were once engaged." Lin Mingxue's eyes turned cold, shedding the innocent, delicate facade she had always worn. "Otherwise, don't blame me for not caring about our past affection." Her gaze was sharp and menacing, causing Jiyu Xiuming to instinctively release his grip. It was only then that he realized the person before him was never some delicate flower. All that gentle affection was merely a disguise for climbing the social ladder. He turned and left the room. Encountering Lin Jingxian, who was on his way to the study, the two of them exchanged a glance, and Jiyu Xiuming was the first to speak. "I really misjudged your good sister." He didn't specify which sister, but Lin Jingxian understood immediately. His expression was complicated. "I never knew she had this side to her. I remember she was always so well behaved, so sensible." As he spoke, he couldn't go on. Jiyu Xiuming left in a daze, while Lin Jingxian stood there, stunned for a long time. On the night the decree to establish the empress was issued, he secretly came to the woodshed to see me and asked me, "Is that decree to establish the empress meant for me? Am I truly the adopted daughter of the Empress Dowager, the beloved county princess?" Watching him struggle and hesitate, I did not answer him. On the day of the grand wedding, he will naturally come to know everything. Lin Mingxue was overjoyed, thinking she was stepping onto a ladder to heaven, but in reality, it was her death warrant. If the eunuch couldn't recognize me, could it be that the Empress Dowager and the Emperor wouldn't recognize me either? While preparing for her grand wedding, Lin Mingxue still didn't forget to have someone bring me over. She displayed the jewels sent from the palace one by one, proudly showing them off. "You probably never had the chance to see these things in your life. I'll let you have a look. A person's fate is truly determined by heaven. What does it matter if you were born into a good family? You have the body of a lady but the fate of a maid." I stared at her coldly, clenching the crumpled paper in my hand without saying a word. "The higher you climb, the harder you fall." I'm waiting to see if she can still be as smug as she is now when she discovers the truth. On the day of the grand wedding, the bridal procession was already waiting at the entrance of the Lin residence. The emperor, having left the imperial harem empty for 3 years, finally agreed to establish an empress, and the ceremony was naturally extraordinary in scale. Just as Lin Mingxue was about to board the sedan chair, she was stopped by the lead eunuch. The eunuch who came to welcome the bride this time was the most trusted grand eunuch by the Empress Dowager. He smiled faintly, blocking her with his horsetail whisk. "Minister Lin, you have quite the nerve, daring to pass off a fake as the real thing." Father's face tightened, and he quickly said, "Father-in-law, this is my daughter Lin Mingxue. How would I dare to swap the candidate for the empress?" Lin Mingxue, holding the round fan, also grew anxious, revealing half of her face. "Father-in-law, have you perhaps misunderstood something? We should hurry and leave. If we miss the auspicious time and the emperor blames us, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear the responsibility." Her personality had grown increasingly arrogant during this time, believing the empress's throne was firmly within her grasp. She didn't even bother pretending anymore and directly resorted to threats, but the chief eunuch had seen it all, not even batting an eye. "Minister Lin, as far as I know, there is only one legitimate daughter in the household. Is it this one?" Father's heart tightened, sensing something amiss. "What do you mean?" The chief eunuch smiled with a hint of insincerity. 15 years ago, your biological daughter went missing by accident. The current Miss Lin was the child you adopted from a nearby village back then. An adopted daughter and a legitimate daughter should not be confused. The father never expected that someone else knew about what happened back then and immediately panicked, under the watchful eyes of the crowd. He feigned composure. "In my heart, there is no difference between an adopted daughter and a biological daughter." After speaking, he couldn't help but lower his voice to ask another question. "When His Majesty issued the decree to appoint the legitimate daughter of the Lin family as the empress, wasn't it Mingxue?" The chief eunuch's expression changed, and he spoke sternly. "How dare you? The laws of this dynasty are clearly written. Those who pass off the inferior as the legitimate shall be stripped of their official positions and sentenced to exile." Father's face suddenly turned pale as he tried to defend himself. "No, it's not like that, father-in-law. My legitimate daughter is disrespectful to her elders and arrogant. With such character, wouldn't it disgrace the nation to have her as empress? On the contrary, my adopted daughter has been clever and intelligent since childhood, with qualities worthy of being empress." The chief eunuch's gaze sharpened. "Is it up to you, Minister Lin, to decide who is qualified to be empress?" Seeing the wealth and honor that was within reach about to slip away, Lin Mingxue also grew anxious. "Father-in-law, it's not that we intentionally deceived the emperor, but my legitimate sister is truly arrogant, domineering, and reckless." She deliberately emphasized her tone. Not only did she impersonate the Empress Dowager's adopted daughter, but she also dared to address the emperor by his name. Such a rebellious person is truly unfit to be the mother of a nation. Lin Mingxue knew that the current emperor placed the utmost importance on filial piety. If anyone dared to impersonate someone from the Empress Dowager's side, they would either die or be stripped of their skin. But unexpectedly, the chief eunuch merely snorted coldly upon hearing this. Yet not a single word she said was false. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. The chief eunuch said coldly, "Minister Lin, your legitimate daughter has been living away from home for 15 years, and she was raised under the Empress Dowager's care. Everyone in the palace knows that the county lady of Yong'an has a gentle temperament and a kind heart. How, in your words, has she become a person of utter wickedness?" He called out the eunuch who had come to deliver the imperial edict that day, his expression dark. "I also heard that you dared to lie in the presence of the imperial edict, falsely claiming your own daughter as an adopted one. Do you know that an imperial edict is as if the emperor himself were present? You have committed the crime of deceiving the sovereign." After this series of accusations, the father's face turned completely pale. How is this possible? How could Lin Yuyao be the adopted daughter of the Empress Dowager? Isn't she just a country girl from the countryside? The chief eunuch had no patience to deal with him any further and waved his hand dismissively. "Take this person, who has confused bloodlines and deceived the emperor, into custody. We will interrogate him thoroughly in due time." Lin Mingxue naturally could not escape either. She looks kind, but her heart is as venomous as a snake. How dare she use private punishment to harm the county princess? Seeing the imperial guard step forward to arrest her, Lin Mingxue's legs gave way, and she knelt on the ground. She shook her head in despair. "It's not like this. It can't be. I am the empress. I am the empress." But no one listened to her. Amidst the clamor, I appeared wearing the wedding dress that Xiao Huaiheng had specially tailored for me. Seeing that wedding dress, which was 100 times more magnificent than hers, Lin Mingxue suddenly understood something and lunged forward. "You knew all along, didn't you? You just wanted to see me make a fool of myself. You did it on purpose." I coldly curled the corner of my lips. "So what? For someone like you, I only think this method is too lenient. I walked past her calmly and said indifferently amidst her desperate wails, "Lin Mingxue, don't you know, what doesn't belong to you will have to be returned sooner or later. Now, it's time for you to repay." The wedding carriage slowly departed from the Lin residence, as the procession disappeared at the end of the road. The gates of the Lin residence were also sealed. In the palace, Xiao Huaiheng had already been waiting for me in the main hall for a long time. After the grand wedding, some people also mentioned whether such punishment was too severe for the Lin family, as they were the emperor's in-laws. Xiao Huaiheng had only just learned about my experiences at the Lin residence. Seeing the injuries on my body, he was heartbroken. Without a second thought, he rejected the petition. Even a tiger, as fierce as it is, does not devour its own cubs. Lin Fen's cruelty is even worse than that of a tiger. All members of the Lin family were sentenced to exile. As for Lin Mingxue, for disfiguring my face in the mansion and even attempting to poison the county princess, she was directly sentenced to death with a stay of execution. Xiao Huaiheng, looking at the faint scar on my face, was so furious that he couldn't sleep for several days. He changed Lin Mingxue's execution from after autumn to 3 days later. Only then did he feel at ease. I quickly tried to comfort him. The imperial physicians in the palace are highly skilled. My appearance and voice will fully recover in just a little more time. Lin Jingxian sent a message, saying he wanted to see me before his exile. I didn't go. The bond of birth is not as strong as the bond of upbringing. I have long understood this truth. Perhaps many years ago, when I was stolen from the Lin residence, it was a blessing from heaven. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you like this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.